I never had a birthday cake, the maid's toddler whispered. The billionaire's reaction left everyone speechless. Alexander Hunt had everything money could buy. At 33, he stood atop the Manhattan skyline in his penthouse, master of a tech empire worth billions. His life was a carefully curated collection of acquisitions, rare art, vintage cars, properties across 3 continents. Yet lately, the glass and steel walls of his pristine home felt less like a sanctuary and more like a cage. He didn't notice the small things anymore. Not the way morning light caught the East River, not the changing seasons beyond his climate-controlled windows, and certainly not the woman who kept his immaculate life running smoothly. Maria Santos moved through Alexander's penthouse like a gentle ghost, arriving before dawn and departing after dusk. At 28, she carried herself with quiet dignity despite circumstances that would have broken lesser souls. Her hands, roughened from work, moved with practiced efficiency across marble countertops and hardwood floors. She never asked for anything, never complained, and Alexander had barely spoken 10 words to her in the 6 months since the agency sent her. What he didn't know was that Maria's day didn't end when she left his apartment. She would ride 3 buses to a cramped studio in Queens, where her 3-year-old daughter Sophia waited with Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who watched her for whatever Maria could spare. Some nights, Maria would arrive home to find Sophia already asleep, and she'd stand in the doorway just watching her daughter breathe, tears streaming silently down her face at another day missed. Sophia was a miracle wrapped in hand-me-down clothes. Her dark eyes sparkled with innocence despite never having known abundance. She didn't understand why Mommy left before the sun came up or why their apartment was so small. She just knew that when Mommy came home, even exhausted and aching, she always had a smile and a story about the clouds she'd seen that day. The morning everything changed started like any other. Maria arrived at 5:30 a.m., letting herself in with her key. She set to work preparing Alexander's breakfast: egg white omelet, whole grain toast, fresh pressed juice, all untouched most mornings as he rushed to early meetings. She was wiping down the spotless kitchen counters when her phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen's name flashed on the screen. "Maria, I'm so sorry." Mrs. Chen's frail voice trembled. "I have to go to the hospital. My daughter is coming from Boston, but Sophia needs someone now." Maria's heart plummeted. She had no backup, no safety net. Her sister lived in California, her parents were back in Honduras, and she couldn't afford the daycare centers that required weeks of deposit. "I understand, Mrs. Chen. Please take care of yourself. I'll figure something out." But there was nothing to figure out. With shaking hands, Maria called the only person she could, a former coworker from the agency, but got no answer. She tried 2 others. Nothing. The clock ticked mercilessly towards 7 a.m. when Alexander would emerge from his bedroom expecting his seamless, invisible world to continue running perfectly. Maria made a choice born of desperation. She called Mrs. Chen's daughter and asked her to bring Sophia to the service entrance. 30 minutes later, Maria was sneaking her daughter up the back elevator, whispering urgently, "You must be very, very quiet, mi amor." "Like we're playing the mouse game, remember?" Sophia nodded solemnly, her tiny hand gripping her mother's. She carried a worn backpack containing crayons, a coloring book, and her most precious possession, a stuffed elephant named Peanut that had been a gift from a church donation drive. Maria settled Sophia in the far corner of the laundry room with strict instructions. "Stay here, baby. Color your pictures. Don't make any noise. Mommy will bring you lunch, okay?" "Okay, Mommy," Sophia whispered, her eyes wide and trusting. The morning progressed in agonizing tension. Maria moved through her duties with her ears constantly tuned to the laundry room. Alexander emerged at 7:15, immaculate in a charcoal suit, barely glancing her way as he grabbed his coffee and attaché case. He had a board meeting at 8. "I'll be back by 3, he said, his first direct words to her in a week. expecting a delivery from Sotheby's. The Rothko piece. Yes, Mr. Hunt, Maria replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The door clicked shut, and Maria released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. She rushed to the laundry room where Sophia sat exactly as instructed, quietly coloring a picture of what appeared to be a giant cake. "You're being so good, baby," Maria whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "I'm so proud of you." "Mommy, when is my birthday?" Sophia asked suddenly, her small voice carrying a weight that 3-year-olds should know. Maria's heart clenched. Sophia's birthday was in a week, her 4th. Last year, they'd celebrated with a cupcake from the bodega and a single candle. The year before, Maria had been between jobs and they'd had nothing. She'd sung happy birthday, while Sophia ate buttered toast. Next week, mi corazón. Why do you ask? Sophia looked down at her drawing. Mia at the park said she had a big cake with princesses for her birthday. And lots of presents. And her whole family came. She paused, her small fingers gripping the crayon. "Will I get a cake, Mommy? A real one?" Maria blinked back tears. "I'll try, baby. I promise I'll try." But even as she said it, Maria knew the math. After rent, utilities, food, and bus fare, there was nothing left. Her next paycheck wouldn't come until after Sophia's birthday. She'd been saving coins in a jar. Maybe she had enough for a grocery store cake, the small kind in the plastic container. "Can I have a princess cake?" Sophia's voice was so hopeful it physically hurt. "We'll see, sweetheart. Now, keep coloring for Mommy." The day crept by. Maria worked with half her attention on Sophia, bringing her a sandwich at lunch, checking every 20 minutes. At 2:30, she began to hope they might actually make it through. Just 30 more minutes until Alexander returned, then she could explain, apologize, maybe. The front door opened an hour early. Maria's blood turned to ice. She was in the kitchen, nowhere near the laundry room. She heard Alexander's footsteps, heard him call out in frustration about a canceled meeting, heard him heading toward his study, which was right next to the laundry room. She moved quickly, but not quickly enough. As she rushed down the hallway, she heard it, a sound that made the world stop spinning. Sophia was humming. That soft, innocent humming of a child lost in imagination, probably coloring her dream birthday cake, completely unaware that she was about to cost her mother everything. Alexander stopped mid-step. His head turned toward the laundry room door. His brow furrowed in confusion because in his ordered, controlled world, there should be no sounds except the ones he authorized. Maria reached him just as his hand touched the doorknob. "Mr. Hunt, please, I can explain." But the door was already opening, and there sat Sophia in the corner, surrounded by her crayons and her dreams, looking up with those enormous dark eyes at the tall stranger in the expensive suit. The moment stretched like taffy. Alexander stared at the child. The child stared back. And Maria's world began to crumble. "I never had a birthday cake," Sophia whispered into the silence, her small voice carrying more weight than any board meeting ever could. She wasn't talking to Alexander, not really. She was just speaking her truth into the universe, unaware that those 6 words were about to change 3 lives forever. The silence that followed Sophia's whisper felt like the moment before an earthquake. Everything suspended, waiting for the world to either shatter or hold. Alexander Hunt, a man who commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals, found himself completely paralyzed by a 3-year-old girl sitting cross-legged on his laundry room floor. Maria rushed forward, her professional composure finally breaking. "Mr. Hunt, I am so sorry. I know this is completely unacceptable. My babysitter had an emergency, and I had no one else. I'll pack my things. I understand I'm fired. Just please give me an hour to find someone to take her." "Stop." Alexander's voice wasn't angry. It was something else entirely, something even he didn't recognize. He couldn't tear his eyes away from Sophia, who had returned to her coloring as if nothing unusual had happened, as if she hadn't just dropped a bomb made of innocence into his perfectly ordered world. "You never had a birthday cake?" he repeated, the words feeling foreign in his mouth. When was the last time he'd thought about birthday cakes? His own birthdays were handled by his assistant, charity galas, networking events, obligations disguised as celebrations. Sophia looked up at him with those impossibly large eyes. "Mommy says maybe this year," she said with the kind of hope that could break hearts. "A princess one. But it's okay if not. Mommy works really hard." Something twisted in Alexander's chest. He looked at Maria, really looked at her for the first time. Her eyes were red-rimmed with unshed tears, her shoulders rigid with the expectation of disaster. He noticed things he'd never bothered to see before, the way her uniform hung a little loose, as if she'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. The worn edges of her shoes. The absence of jewelry except for a simple cross at her neck. "How old is she?" he heard himself ask. "3, Mr. Hunt. She'll be 4 next week. I know I've violated your trust and the terms of my employment. I just need a little time to—" "When's her birthday exactly?" Maria blinked, confused by the question. "Next Wednesday, sir." Alexander nodded slowly, his mind working through something he didn't fully understand yet. "And you were going to hide her in my laundry room all day?" "Yes, sir. No, it was just for today. I would have made other arrangements tomorrow. This was an emergency, and I made a terrible decision, and I take full responsibility. Does she need lunch?" Maria stopped mid-sentence, her mouth hanging open. What? It's past lunchtime. Has she eaten?" Alexander crouched down to Sophia's level, a gesture that felt alien to his body. When was the last time he'd been at eye level with a child? He couldn't remember ever doing so. Sophia held up her coloring book. "Mommy brought me a sandwich. Would you like to see my picture? It's a birthday cake. A really, really big one." Alexander took the coloring book with careful hands, as if it might disintegrate. The drawing was chaotic, colors spilling outside lines, the cake appearing to have at least 15 layers, each one a different color. Stick figures surrounded it, all with enormous smiles. "That's you and Mommy," Sophia explained, pointing to 2 larger figures. "And that's me. And that's everyone at the party. Lots of people, because birthdays should have lots of people, so you feel loved." Alexander felt something crack inside his chest. "Do you feel loved, Sophia?" "Oh yes," Sophia said with absolute certainty. "Mommy loves me this much." She spread her arms as wide as they could go. "She tells me every day, even when she's tired, especially when she's tired." Alexander looked up at Maria, who had pressed herself against the doorframe as if trying to become invisible. Her hand was over her mouth, and tears were streaming down her face silently. "Don't fire my mommy," Sophia said suddenly, her voice taking on a serious tone that seemed too old for her small face. "She's the best worker. She never breaks things, and she makes everything so clean. She just needed to bring me today, because Mrs. Chen got sick. I've been very quiet, like a mouse." The matter-of-factness in her voice, the way this tiny child was trying to negotiate her mother's job security, did something to Alexander that quarterly reports and profit margins never could. It made him feel small. Smaller than he'd felt in years, maybe ever. He stood abruptly. "Maria, come with me. Sophia, you stay right here. Keep coloring." Maria followed him into the hallway on shaking legs, already forming speeches about references and notice periods, and promising this would never happen again. But Alexander surprised her by walking to his study and pulling out his phone. "What's a good bakery?" he asked. Maria stared at him. "I'm sorry?" "A bakery. For birthday cakes. Specifically princess birthday cakes, apparently." He was already typing into his phone with the intensity he usually reserved for stock reports. "Mr. Hunt, I don't understand. Your daughter has never had a birthday cake," he interrupted, looking up at her with an expression she couldn't read. "Is that true?" Maria's throat tightened. The shame of it, having her poverty laid bare to her billionaire employer, was almost more than she could bear. But she wouldn't lie. "We've had cupcakes. Sometimes. It's been tight." How tight? The question was direct, almost clinical, but something in his eyes wasn't cold. Maria found herself answering honestly, maybe because she figured she had nothing left to lose. "I make $20 an hour. I work 50 hours a week for you, but I can only claim 40 because the agency won't approve overtime. After rent, utilities, and food, there's usually about $50 left each month. That has to cover everything else: clothes for Sophia, emergencies, bus fare when the monthly pass runs out." She squared her shoulders, finding dignity in the truth. "I know I'm poor, Mr. Hunt. I've known it all my life. But I work hard, and I'm raising my daughter to be kind and good, and that counts for something." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "Where's her father?"
"Gone.
"He left when I was pregnant. I haven't seen him since." No bitterness in her voice, just fact. "And your family?" "In Honduras. I send them what I can." Alexander turned back to his phone, his jaw working. Maria watched as he pulled up what appeared to be a bakery website, scrolling through elaborate custom cakes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Mr. Hunt, you don't have to." "I'm not doing anything," he said sharply. Then, softer, "Yet. I need to think." He walked past her back to the laundry room, where Sophia had added more figures to her drawing. "Sophia, what's your favorite princess?" Sophia's face lit up like Times Square at night. "Cinderella." Because she was sad, but then she got to go to the ball, and everyone saw she was special. "Mommy says I'm special too." "Your mother is right." Alexander found himself smiling, actually smiling for the first time in weeks. "What else do you like?" "Besides princesses." "Elephants. And the color purple. And stars. And when Mommy sings to me, even though she says her voice is bad, but it's not. It's the best voice." Sophia listed these things with the seriousness of a sommelier describing wine notes. "Your voice is beautiful, Mommy," Sophia added, looking at Maria with pure adoration. Alexander watched Maria crouch down and pull Sophia into her arms, both of them existing in their own world of fierce love despite having almost nothing. He thought about his own childhood, the boarding schools, the nannies, the birthday parties thrown by event planners where he barely knew the other children. Everything money could buy, yet he couldn't remember anyone ever holding him the way Maria held Sophia. "Finish your picture," he said abruptly. "Both of you stay here. Don't move. I need to make some calls." He left the room before Maria could protest, already dialing his assistant. "Jennifer, I need you to find me the best bakery in New York. Custom cakes. I need something special for next Wednesday." "Your birthday isn't until October, Mr. Hunt." "It's not for me." "And clear my schedule for tomorrow." "The whole day." "The whole day? But you have the investors' meeting." "Reschedule it." "Everything. I have something more important to do." He hung up before she could respond, already moving to his laptop. He had resources, connections, and for the first time in years, a purpose that had nothing to do with profit margins. In the laundry room, Sophia whispered to her mother, "Is the tall man mad?" Maria held her daughter closer, having no answer because she truly didn't know. Alexander Hunt was a mystery wrapped in expensive fabric, and she'd just exposed the rawest part of her life to him. All she could do was wait to see if his reaction would be kindness or judgment. But in his study, Alexander was already making lists, already planning, already feeling something he'd forgotten he could feel, the urgent desire to fix something not because it would make him money, but because a 3-year-old girl with hand-me-down clothes and a worn elephant had whispered about never having a birthday cake, and somehow, that whisper had reached a part of him he'd thought dead years ago. The walls he'd built around his heart were coming down, one crayon drawing at a time. Alexander Hunt hadn't stayed in his penthouse this late on a Tuesday in 3 years. His schedule was legendary. Up at 5 a.m., gym at 5:30, office by 7, meetings until 8 p.m., networking dinners until midnight. Yet here, he was at 6 p.m., sitting at his kitchen island with his laptop, making plans that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings. Maria had tried to leave at 4 p.m., her usual time, practically dragging Sophia toward the door while apologizing every third step. Alexander had stopped her with a raised hand. "We need to talk. Sit down." Maria had frozen, and Sophia clutched Peanut the elephant tighter. The child's perceptiveness broke through her usual chatter. She sensed her mother's fear. "Am I going to lose my job?" Maria asked quietly, finally saying aloud what had been terrorizing her for hours. "That depends." Alexander gestured to the kitchen chairs. "Sit. Both of you." They sat like defendants awaiting verdict. Sophia climbed into her mother's lap without being asked, a united front of two against the world. Alexander found himself wondering how often they sat like this, just the two of them against everything life threw at them. "I've been thinking," he began, then paused. "How did you tell someone that their child's whispered confession had rewired your entire perspective?" "About Sophia's birthday." "Mr. Hunt, please, you don't need to worry about. I want to throw her a party." The words hung in the air like a record scratch. Maria blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "A birthday party. Here. Next Wednesday." Alexander opened his laptop, turning it toward them. On the screen was a Pinterest board, something he never created before in his life, filled with princess party ideas. "I've been researching. Apparently, 4-year-olds enjoy bounce houses, face painting, and something called bubble stations." Maria stared at the screen, then at him, then back at the screen. "Mr. Hunt, I appreciate the gesture, but I couldn't possibly. Can I have a bounce house?" Sophia's whisper was awestruck, her fear forgotten in the face of such impossible wonder. "Yes," Alexander said firmly, and something about the certainty in his voice made Maria's protests die in her throat. "And a cake. A proper one." "What did you say, Cinderella?" Sophia nodded, her eyes wider than Maria had ever seen them. "Mr. Hunt," Maria tried again, her voice shaking. "This is too much. You don't even know us. I'm just your housekeeper. It's inappropriate." "It's human," Alexander interrupted. "It's human. Your daughter has never had a birthday cake, Maria. She's about to turn 4 years old, and she's never had a birthday cake." He said it like he was still processing the information, like it was a line of code that didn't compute in his world of abundance. "Many children don't," Maria said quietly, some of her dignity returning. "We're not charity cases, Mr. Hunt. We manage. We're grateful for what we have." "I'm not offering charity." Alexander leaned back, crossing his arms. "I'm offering a party. There's a difference." "What difference?" "Charity is about obligation. This is about—" He struggled for the word. "Want." "I want to do this. I haven't wanted to do anything in a very long time." The honesty in his voice caught Maria off guard. She looked at this man, this billionaire who lived in a penthouse that cost more than most people made in a lifetime, and saw something she hadn't expected: loneliness. "Why?" she asked simply. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "This morning I had a board meeting. 12 people in a room, discussing ways to make more money. We already have more money than we could spend in several lifetimes, but we sat there for 3 hours discussing how to get more." He looked at Sophia, who was listening with the intense focus children have when adults say important things. "Then I came home early and found a 3-year-old girl who's never had a birthday cake, being raised by a mother who works 60-hour weeks and still can't afford one. And I realized I've been those people in that boardroom my entire adult life, completely disconnected from this. From what actually matters." "A birthday party matters?" Maria asked softly. "To her, yes." Alexander pointed at Sophia. "Look at her face. That matters." Sophia was indeed glowing, her imagination clearly running wild with possibilities. "Would other kids come?"
To my party.
The question stopped Alexander cold. He hadn't thought about other children. Did Sophia even have friends? Where would they come from? Maria saw his confusion and felt embarrassed again. Sophia doesn't go to preschool, she explained. She stays with a neighbor while I work. She plays at the park sometimes, but we don't. We haven't had playdates or anything like that. The lady at the park is nice, Sophia offered helpfully. She has a grandson named Miguel. He's 5. And there's Emma and Jordan and Lily. They share the swings. Would you like them to come to your party? Alexander asked. Sophia nodded so vigorously, her whole body shook. Then they'll come. Alexander was already making notes. Maria, you'll need to find out their parents' information. I'll handle the invitations. Mr. Hunt, this is insane. Is it? He closed his laptop and looked at her directly. I spend $30,000 a year on wine I barely drink. I have 4 cars sitting in a garage. I visit twice a month. Last month, I bought a painting for $250,000 because my decorator said it would complete the space. Tell me what's more insane, spending money on a child's happiness or on a canvas of paint I'll look at maybe once a week. Maria had no answer for that. The numbers he was throwing around made her dizzy. $30,000 on wine. That was more than she made in a year. Besides, Alexander continued, his voice softening, you're not just my housekeeper. That's what I pay you to be, but that's not what you are. You're a mother. A good one. Sophia is polite, kind, imaginative, and clearly loved beyond measure. You've done that with nothing but your own heart. That deserves recognition. Tears welled in Maria's eyes. In 4 years of single motherhood, through all the judgment and struggle, no one had ever said those words to her. So here's what's going to happen, Alexander said, his CEO voice returning, but somehow warmer. Tomorrow you're taking the day off.
Paid.
You and Sophia are going to go shopping for a birthday outfit. Here, he pulled out his wallet and extracted a credit card, setting it on the table. This is for you to use. Absolutely not. It's a company card, he lied smoothly. Consider it part of your benefits package. Every employee gets a discretionary fund for special occasions. You've worked here 6 months and haven't used yours. Maria stared at the card like it might bite her. Mr. Hunt, I can't. You can and you will, because Wednesday morning, Sophia needs to come back here at 10 a.m. The party starts at noon, but we'll need setup time. You'll both stay through the party, and afterward, we'll have dinner. I'm ordering from that Italian place you mentioned once. The one in your neighborhood that you said smelled amazing, but you'd never been inside. Sophia gasped. Mommy, he means Lorenzo's. The one with the lights in the windows. How did you? Maria trailed off, realizing with a start that Alexander had been listening. In 6 months of near silence between them, he'd been listening. I pay attention, Alexander said simply. I haven't been, but I'm starting to. So tomorrow shopping. Wednesday party. And Maria, he waited until she met his eyes. Bring Sophia to work with you whenever you need to. I mean it. This place is too damn empty, anyway. That broke her. Maria put her face in her hands and wept, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of someone who'd been carrying a boulder finally being allowed to set it down. Sophia patted her mother's head, looking concerned. Are those happy tears? Sophia asked. Yes, baby, Maria managed. Very happy tears. Because of my party? Because of a very kind man, Maria said, looking at Alexander through her tears. A very, very kind man. Alexander felt uncomfortable with the praise, with the emotion, with all of it. He was used to gratitude in the form of profit shares and stock options, not tears and children's awestruck expressions. But uncomfortable or not, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Useful. Not for his money or his connections, but for making someone happy just because he could. Go home, he said gruffly.
Rest. Tomorrow, shopping.
I'll text you the details. You don't have my number, Maria said with a watery laugh. I do. It's in your employment file. I'll text you tonight. He stood, signaling the conversation was over because he needed them to leave before he said something even more ridiculous, like offering to come shopping with them. Go. Maria gathered Sophia and her things, moving toward the door in a daze. At the threshold, Sophia broke free and ran back to Alexander, wrapping her small arms around his legs in a fierce hug. Thank you, she whispered. You're like the fairy godmother. But a man. A fairy godfather. Alexander stood frozen, this tiny human clinging to his legs, and felt his eyes burn. When was the last time someone had hugged him? Really hugged him, not the brief social embraces at charity galas or the perfunctory greetings at family obligations. He patted Sophia's head awkwardly. You're welcome. Now go before your mother worries. After they left, Alexander stood in his empty penthouse and laughed, actually laughed, at the absurdity of it all. 24 hours ago, his biggest concern was a potential merger. Now he was planning a princess party for a 3-year-old he'd just met, and somehow, it felt like the most important thing he'd done in years. He pulled out his phone and opened his contacts. Time to call in some favors. Jennifer? Yeah, it's me again. I need a party planner. No, not for a corporate event. For a child's birthday. For years old. Princess theme. And Jennifer? Spare no expense. I mean that literally. Spare absolutely no expense. As he hung up and began making more calls, to caterers, entertainers, decorators, Alexander realized he was smiling. Really smiling. Planning and executing with the same intensity he brought to business deals, but for a completely different bottom line. One little girl's joy. In the reflection of his darkened window, he caught sight of himself and barely recognized the man looking back. This version of Alexander Hunt was someone new. Someone who cared about birthday cakes and princess dresses and making sure a child who'd had nothing got to have everything, at least for one day. It felt like waking up after a very long sleep. And in a small studio apartment in Queens, Sophia fell asleep clutching Peanut, whispering to her stuffed elephant about bounce houses and fairy godfathers and the impossible magic of someone caring, really caring, just because they could. Wednesday morning arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made New Yorkers believe in benevolent deities. Alexander had been awake since 4 a.m., not from habit, but from something closer to excitement, an emotion he'd nearly forgotten how to feel. His penthouse had been transformed overnight into a fairy tale brought to life, and he'd supervised every detail with the intensity of a general planning a campaign. The party planner, Simone, had initially looked at him with barely concealed skepticism when he'd outlined his vision at their Monday meeting. "Let me be clear, Mr. Hunt," she'd said in her crisp French accent. "You want a full princess experience, with carousel horses, a throne, professional photography, live entertainment, and a custom 5-tier cake for 8 children from a public park?" "That's correct. And your budget is?" "Irrelevant. Make it magical." Simone had smiled then, really smiled, and said something that had stuck with him. "In 20 years of planning parties for Manhattan's elite, I've never once been told budget is irrelevant for a child who isn't the host's own. This will be my masterpiece, Mr. Hunt. You have my word." She'd delivered. The penthouse's main living area had been transformed into Cinderella's castle. Shimmering blue and silver fabric draped from the ceiling, creating the illusion of being inside a ballroom. A scaled-down carousel with 4 horses stood near the windows, each horse hand-painted with flowers and glitter. A bounce house, princess-themed, naturally, occupied what used to be his formal dining area. Balloon artists, a face painter, and a magician were scheduled to arrive at 11:30. The cake stood as the centerpiece on a special table, 5 tiers of architectural marvel, featuring a sugar paste Cinderella on top, surrounded by her mice friends. Each tier was a different pastel shade, decorated with edible pearls and sugar flowers. It had cost $4,000. Alexander had barely blinked at the price. "She's going to lose her mind," Jennifer said, surveying the transformation with awe. His assistant had become his co-conspirator over the past few days, helping coordinate the dozens of details required to pull off this surprise. Mr. Hunt, this is the most human thing I've ever seen you do." "That's a depressing commentary on my character," Alexander replied, adjusting a streamer that had come loose. "I didn't mean it as an insult. I meant it as hope." Jennifer smiled at him. "I've worked for you for 5 years. This is the first time I've seen you care about something beyond the company. It's nice. You should do it more often." Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. 10 a.m. exactly. Maria was nothing if not punctual. Alexander opened the door and forgot how to breathe. Maria stood there in a simple sundress, clearly new, probably the first new clothing she'd bought herself in years, her usually tied-back hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked younger, less burdened, though he could see nervousness in her eyes. But Sophia stood beside her mother, transformed into every little girl's dream. Her dress was princess pink with layers of tulle that made her look like she was floating. A small tiara perched on her dark curls. She wore white dress shoes, also clearly new, and clutched Peanut the elephant, who'd been fitted with his own tiny bow tie. "I'm a princess," Sophia whispered, as if saying it too loud might break the spell. "You absolutely are," Alexander managed, crouching down to her level. "Come see your castle, Princess Sophia." He led them inside and watched Sophia's face as she took in the transformation. The child stopped walking. Stopped breathing, it seemed. Her eyes grew impossibly wide, her mouth forming a perfect O of shock. "This is for me?" Her voice was so small, so disbelieving. "Every bit of it." Sophia turned to her mother, seeking confirmation that this was real, that she wasn't dreaming. Maria nodded, tears already streaming down her face, and Sophia let out a sound between a laugh and a sob and ran into the space, spinning in circles, trying to take in everything at once. "The horses go round and round. Mommy, look. And a castle for jumping. And is that my cake?" She'd spotted the 5-tier masterpiece and approached it like it was a holy relic. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Alexander watched Maria, not Sophia. He watched this young mother seeing her daughter's joy, seeing every sacrifice and struggle validated in her child's wonder. Maria pressed her hand to her mouth, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Thank you," she whispered to Alexander. "Thank you doesn't even begin to cover it, but thank you." "The party hasn't even started yet," Alexander said, surprised by the roughness in his own voice. "Come on. Let's get some pictures before the chaos begins." The professional photographer he'd hired, usually reserved for weddings and high society events, positioned Sophia on the throne he'd rented. The child sat like actual royalty, her posture perfect, Peanut in her lap, beaming at the camera. "Can Mommy be in the picture?" Sophia asked. "Of course," the photographer said, gesturing Maria over. "And Mr. Alexander?" Everyone turned to look at him. Alexander, who usually avoided photos like the plague, who'd paid publicists to keep his image out of newspapers, felt something shift. Sure. Why not? They posed together, an unlikely trio. Maria and Alexander standing on either side of the throne, Sophia between them, all three smiling. The photographer captured something raw in that moment, something real. At 11:30, the entertainers arrived. At noon, the children began showing up with their parents, the kids from the park Sophia had mentioned, wide-eyed at the luxury apartment building, nervous in their Sunday best. Alexander greeted each family personally, learning names, shaking small hands, assuring parents this wasn't a mistake or a trick. Mrs. Chin came with her daughter, apologizing repeatedly for the emergency that had started this whole chain of events. "You turned my disaster into a miracle," she told Alexander, patting his hand. God works in mysterious ways. By 12:30, the penthouse echoed with the sound of children's laughter, something it had never held before. 8 kids bounced in the bounce house, got their faces painted as butterflies and superheroes, rode the carousel horses, and watched in awe as the magician pulled ribbons from thin air. Sophia was at the center of it all, radiant, confident in a way Maria had never seen her daughter be. She introduced Alexander to each child as my friend Mr. Alexander, who made this party because he's magic. I'm not magic, Alexander told Miguel, a serious 5-year-old with thick glasses. Yes, you are, Miguel insisted. Sophia said she wished for a party, and you made it happen. That's magic. Alexander found he had no argument for that logic. The parents congregated in the kitchen area, drinking coffee Alexander had catered from a local cafe, marveling at the transformation and whispering among themselves about this mysterious billionaire throwing a party for children he'd never met. Why are you doing this? Asked Emma's mother, a tired-looking woman with 2 other kids hanging off her. I don't mean to be rude, but people like you don't usually even notice people like us. Alexander thought about his answer carefully. Because I was noticed, he said finally. A 3-year-old girl taught me that I'd stop seeing people. She reminded me what matters. This party isn't charity. It's a thank you. At 2 p.m., they sang Happy Birthday. Sophia stood before her magnificent cake, her candles flickering, surrounded by new friends and old ones, her mother beside her with an arm around Alexander's without even realizing it, and the look on her face was pure incandescent joy. Make a wish, baby, Maria encouraged. Sophia closed her eyes tight, thinking hard. Then she blew out all 4 candles in one breath. When her eyes opened, she looked directly at Alexander. I wish that you wouldn't be lonely anymore, she said simply. Because friends shouldn't be lonely, and you're my friend now. The room went silent. Every parent, every entertainer, even the children seemed to understand they'd witnessed something profound. Alexander felt his throat close, felt the walls he'd spent decades building crumble completely. Thank you, Sophia, he managed. That's the best gift anyone's ever given me. The party continued until 6 p.m. The children played until they could barely stand, their faces painted and their stomachs full of pizza and cake. Parents exchanged phone numbers, planning future playdates at normal locations like public parks and McDonald's. Sophia gave each child a goodie bag Alexander had filled with toys and books and gift cards for their parents, for something special he'd written on each one. When the last family left, Sophia crashed immediately, falling asleep on the couch still in her princess dress, tiara askew, peanut clutched tight. Maria tried to clean up, but Alexander stopped her.
Don't. I have people for that. Sit.
You haven't stopped moving all day. They sat on either side of the sleeping Sophia, the penthouse quiet except for the soft sound of her breathing. The decorations still hung, the cake mostly eaten but the top tier preserved, the bounce house slowly deflating in the corner. I don't know how to thank you, Maria said finally. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. You gave her a day she'll remember forever. She gave me something too, Alexander replied. Perspective. Purpose. I've spent my entire adult life accumulating things, building wealth, closing deals. And in one morning, a child who had nothing showed me I had even less. She had love.
Joy.
Wonder. I had expensive furniture. You have more than that, Maria said gently. You have kindness. Generosity. You just forgot to use them. Maybe. Alexander looked at Sophia's sleeping face. Or maybe I never learned how. My parents weren't exactly warm. Boarding school at 7, business school at 18, CEO at 28. I can't remember the last time I just played. Or laughed like those kids did today. Or felt like what I was doing mattered to anyone but shareholders. It matters, Maria said softly. What you did today matters. Not just to Sophia, but to all those families. You saw them.
Really saw them.
You have no idea what that means to people who are used to being invisible. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Sophia sleep, and Alexander realized this. This quiet moment with a woman he barely knew and a child he'd met 3 days ago felt more like home than his penthouse ever had. Come to dinner with me, he said suddenly. Tomorrow. You and Sophia. Not here. Somewhere nice. Lorenzo's, the place with the lights. Maria looked at him carefully. Mr. Hunt. Alexander. Call me Alexander. Alexander, she amended. Are you asking me on a date, or is this another kindness project? The directness of the question forced him to examine his own motivations. Was this attraction? Gratitude? A savior complex? But when he looked at Maria, really looked at her, he saw strength and dignity and beauty that had nothing to do with the clothes she wore or the size of her bank account. I honestly don't know, he admitted. I just know I'd like to spend more time with both of you. As friends, if nothing else. Is that okay? Maria smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. As friends, yes. But Alexander? Yes. Sophia was right. You are lonely, and you're trying to fix that. But you can't fix loneliness by playing fairy godfather to every struggling single mother you meet. Just the one then? He asked with a tentative smile. Just this one, Maria agreed. For now. Sophia stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about cake and carousels. Alexander reached out without thinking and adjusted her tiara before it fell off. Such a small gesture, but Maria noticed how gentle his hands were, how naturally he cared for her daughter despite having no practice at such things. Maybe, she thought, there was hope for them all yet. Not as a fairy tale. Those weren't real. But as something better. Real people, finding real connection, building something authentic from the foundation of a child's simple wish. The days following Sophia's party unfold like a flower opening, slowly, naturally, with moments of beauty that took everyone by surprise. Alexander found himself doing something unprecedented, leaving work early. Not every day, but enough that Jennifer stopped showing shock and started blocking out his afternoons with a knowing smile. Thursday evening, Alexander kept his promise. He picked up Maria and Sophia in his car, not the Bentley, which he correctly assumed would make Maria uncomfortable, but the Tesla, which was still luxurious, but somehow felt less ostentatious. Sophia, now comfortable with him, chattered nonstop about her party, retelling every detail as if he hadn't been there. Lorenzo's was a small Italian restaurant in Queens with checkered tablecloths and Dean Martin playing softly overhead. The owner, an elderly man named Gino, greeted them with a warmth reserved for regulars, though Alexander had called ahead to make reservations. Maria, Gino exclaimed, his face lighting up. I see you walk by my windows every day, always looking in but never coming inside. And who is this beautiful principessa? I'm Sophia, Sophia announced. And I just had the best birthday party in the whole world. They were seated at a corner table, and Alexander watched Maria transform in this environment. Here, she wasn't his employee. She was a neighbor, a member of this community that clearly loved her even if she'd never had money to participate fully in it. The food was spectacular. Homemade pasta, sauce that had been simmering for hours, bread warm from the oven. Sophia ate with the enthusiasm of someone discovering new favorite foods, getting sauce on her face and not caring. Alexander found himself laughing more in that 2-hour dinner than he had in the past 2 years. Tell me about you, Maria said as Sophia colored on the paper menu Gino had provided. Not billionaire you.
Real you.
Who were you before all the money and success? It was a question no one had asked him in years. People usually wanted to know about his business, his strategy, his next acquisition. Never about him. Lonely, he admitted. I was always lonely. My parents divorced when I was 6. Neither really wanted me, so they sent me away to school. I learned early that achievement got attention, good grades, athletic trophies, business successes. So I achieved.
And achieved.
And somewhere in all that achieving, I forgot to build a life. No relationships? No one special? A few, Alexander said carefully. Women who liked the lifestyle more than they liked me. I can't blame them. I wasn't exactly emotionally available. My last relationship ended 2 years ago. She told me I was in love with my company, not her. She wasn't wrong. And now? Maria asked gently. Now I'm trying to figure out what it means to be a person instead of a portfolio. He smiled at Sophia, who was showing him her drawing of what appeared to be a dragon eating pizza. Your daughter is a good teacher. She has good instincts about people, Maria agreed. When her father left, I worried she'd have trust issues. But she's the opposite. She sees the good in everyone until proven wrong. Tell me about you, Alexander countered. You know my story. What's yours? Maria was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. I came to the United States when I was 18 with nothing but a backpack and a dream of something better. I worked 3 jobs, cleaning hotels during the day, waitressing at night, studying English whenever I could. I met Carlos when I was 23. He was charming, handsome, full of promises about the future we'd build together. She traced patterns on the tablecloth, her voice steady but sad. When I got pregnant, everything changed. He said he wasn't ready, that a baby would ruin our plans. I told him the baby was my plan now. He left the next day. I never saw him again. I'm sorry, Alexander said, meaning it. I'm not, Maria replied firmly, because I got Sophia. And she's worth every struggle, every sleepless night, every moment of fear that I wasn't doing enough. She's my miracle. Sophia looked up at hearing her name. Are you talking about me? Always me, amor, Maria smiled. You're my favorite topic. I'm gonna be 4 forever, Sophia announced. Because being 4 is the best. After dinner, they walked through the neighborhood. Sophia held both their hands, swinging between them, singing a song about princesses and dragons that she appeared to be making up as she went along. Alexander felt something settle in his chest, a peace he'd been searching for in boardrooms and bank accounts, but had never found. This is nice, he said quietly to Maria as Sophia released their hands to chase a pigeon. It is, Maria agreed. But Alexander, I need to know what we're doing here. What do you mean? I mean, she struggled for words. You're a good man, a kind man, but you're also my employer. There's a power dynamic that makes this complicated. I don't want to take advantage of your generosity, and I don't want Sophia getting hurt if you're just processing something and we're convenient. Alexander stopped walking. The directness of her concern deserved an honest answer. You're right. There is a power dynamic. And I don't have a clean answer for what this is or where it's going. All I know is that before I met Sophia, I was successful and miserable. Now I'm successful and less miserable. You've both reminded me that life is supposed to have joy in it, not just achievement. So, we're your joy project? Maria asked, not unkindly, just wanting clarity. No, Alexander said firmly. You're my friends. My first real friends, in longer than I want to admit. Everything else, we figure out as we go. Is that okay? Maria considered this, watching Sophia try to feed breadcrumbs to a decidedly uninterested pigeon. Friends, she repeated. I can do friends. Good. Alexander felt relief wash over him. Because I really need friends. And I think Sophia needs someone who can afford to take her to the zoo occasionally. The zoo? Sophia shrieked, having overheard. Can we go to the zoo? Please, please, please. Absolutely, Alexander said. This Saturday? And just like that, a pattern established itself. Saturday became zoo day, which became their day. Alexander would pick them up mid-morning, and they'd spend hours wandering through exhibits, Sophia providing running commentary on each animal's personality and home life. She decided the lions were a family, the The penguins were best friends, and the elephants, her favorites, were wise advisors to all the other animals. "That one is you," Sophia said one Saturday, pointing to a particularly dignified elephant standing slightly apart from the herd. "Because he looks lonely, but really he just needs friends who understand him." "And which one is your mom?" Alexander asked, amused. Sophia pointed to a smaller elephant clearly organizing the rest of the group, making sure the babies stayed close. "That one. Because she takes care of everyone." "And you?" "I'm the baby," Sophia giggled, pointing to a playful young elephant splashing in the water. "Because I'm having fun." These outings became the highlights of Alexander's week. He started leaving the office at 3 p.m. on Fridays, started declining weekend networking events, started building his schedule around this makeshift family he'd stumbled into. His board noticed. Jennifer noticed. His few social acquaintances definitely noticed when he turned down invitations to gallery openings and charity galas with excuses about prior commitments. "You have a girlfriend?" one business associate asked bluntly at a meeting. "I have a friend," Alexander corrected. "And her daughter. We spend time together." The truth was more complicated than that. He was developing feelings for Maria. How could he not? She was brilliant and strong and had a laugh that made him want to be funnier just to hear it more often. But she was also right about the power dynamic, and he refused to pressure her or make her uncomfortable. So they maintained their strange balance. During the week, Maria was his housekeeper, professional and efficient. On weekends, she was his friend, warm and open. Sophia was the bridge between both worlds, treating him exactly the same regardless of location or context. "Why don't you have a family?" Sophia asked him one Saturday as they ate ice cream in Central Park. "Sophia," Maria said quickly. "That's personal." "It's okay," Alexander assured her. "I never found the right people, I guess. My work was always more important." "That's silly," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "Work isn't a people. You can't hug work." "She has a point," Maria murmured, trying not to smile. "You could be part of our family," Sophia continued, her childish logic seeing solutions adults complicated. "We have room. Right, Mommy?" Maria's cheeks flushed. "It doesn't work like that, baby. Families are complicated."
Why?
"You love someone, they love you, your family. That's not complicated." Sophia looked between them with a child's clarity. "Do you love us, Mr. Alexander?" The question hung in the air. Alexander looked at this 4-year-old now, who asked impossible questions with complete sincerity. Then at Maria, who was studying her ice cream like it held the secrets of the universe. "Yes," he said simply. "I do love you both. Very much." Sophia beamed.
See?
Not complicated. You just needed to use your words. Maria finally looked up, her eyes shining. "Sophia, why don't you go feed the ducks? Stay where we can see you." Once Sophia was out of earshot, Maria turned to Alexander. "Did you mean that? Or were you just being nice to a child?" "I meant it," Alexander said. "I'm falling in love with both of you. I know the timing is terrible and the circumstances are complicated, and I'm probably breaking every HR rule ever written. But it's true." "Alexander." "You don't have to say anything back," he interrupted quickly. "I just wanted to be honest. Like Sophia said, use my words. We can keep being friends. Nothing has to change unless you want it to." Maria was quiet for a long moment, watching Sophia toss bread to enthusiastic ducks. "Everything has already changed," she said finally. From the moment Sophia whispered about never having a birthday cake, everything changed. "You changed. I changed. We all changed." "Is that bad?" "No." Maria smiled, reaching over to take his hand. The first time she'd initiated physical contact beyond friendly hugs. "It's terrifying. But no, it's not bad." They sat like that, hands linked, watching Sophia play. Both of them aware they were standing at the edge of something that could be wonderful or disastrous, but was definitely real. I need time, Maria said eventually, to process this, to figure out what it means, to make sure Sophia's okay with it. Take all the time you need, Alexander replied. I'm not going anywhere. And he meant it. For the first time in his adult life, Alexander Hunt had found something more valuable than any business deal, more precious than any acquisition. He'd found people to love, and he was willing to wait, to work, to do whatever it took to make it work. Because Sophia was right. It wasn't complicated. You loved someone, they loved you, and you figured out the rest together. 3 months later, Alexander's life had been quietly revolutionized. His pristine penthouse now had toys in corners, children's books on shelves, and a small collection of Sophia's artwork magnet to his previously bare refrigerator. His schedule, once ruthlessly efficient, now included school pickups, bedtime stories, and weekend adventures that had nothing to do with networking or profit margins. The change hadn't gone unnoticed. His board had initially been concerned when his work hours decreased, but the quarterly numbers told an unexpected story. Alexander was more focused, more creative, and more effective in less time. Happiness, it turned out, was excellent for productivity. You're different, his CFO told him after a particularly successful meeting. Sharper. More present. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. What Alexander was doing was learning to live. Really live, not just exist in pursuit of the next goal. He was learning from Sophia that wonder didn't require wealth, that joy could be found in puddle jumping and cloud watching. He was learning from Maria that strength came in many forms, that asking for help wasn't weakness but wisdom. And somewhere in all that learning, the three of them had become something that looked remarkably like a family. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. Maria and Sophia had moved into the penthouse officially 2 weeks ago, not into Alexander's bedroom, but into one of the guest suites he'd renovated specifically for them. Maria had resisted initially, worried about propriety and dependence, and all the reasonable concerns of a woman who'd fought for independence her entire adult life. I can't just move into your home, she'd protested when he first suggested it. What will people think? Let them think what they want, Alexander had replied. You're spending 14 hours a week commuting. Sophia's preschool is 3 blocks from here instead of an hour away. The suite has its own entrance, its own kitchen if you want privacy. And honestly, Maria, I want you both here. Not as my employee, as my family. We're not married, she'd pointed out. Not yet, he'd said, then immediately backpedaled at her shocked expression. I mean, not that I'm assuming. I just meant. Alexander, she'd interrupted, laughing. Are you trying to propose, or are you having a stroke? Neither.
Both.
I don't know. He'd run his hands through his hair in frustration. I'm new at this. At feeling things. At wanting things that aren't business-related. But I want you and Sophia in my life permanently. However you'll have me. Maria had kissed him then, their first real kiss, soft and sweet and full of promise. We'll move in, she'd whispered against his lips. But Alexander? Next time you accidentally propose, maybe have a ring ready. Now, Sophia attended the best preschool in Manhattan, one that cost more per month than Maria used to make in 2, but where Sophia thrived among other children who challenged and delighted her. She was reading above her grade level and had declared she wanted to be a veterinarian princess when she grew up because animals need royal doctors too. Maria had enrolled in night classes at community college, studying business management with Alexander's encouragement and financial support. She'd initially refused the help, but he'd framed it as an investment. I need someone I trust to eventually help run the charitable foundation I'm starting, he'd explained. Consider it career development. The charitable foundation was another change. Inspired by Sophia's party and the families he'd met, Alexander had established the Sophia Santos Foundation, named with Maria's tearful permission, focused on providing resources for working single parents, birthday parties for kids who'd never had them, scholarship funds, emergency financial assistance. Child care support. Why name it after her? Maria had asked when he showed her the paperwork. Because she changed my life, Alexander had said simply. She reminded me that people matter more than profit. That seems worth commemorating. This particular Saturday morning, the three of them were in the kitchen making pancakes, or rather, Sophia and Alexander were making pancakes while Maria supervised with coffee and commentary. You're using too much batter, Maria laughed as Alexander poured a massive puddle onto the griddle. It's a giant pancake, Alexander defended. For my giant appetite. It's a mess, Sophia corrected him with the brutal honesty of a 4-year-old. But I still love you. Those words, so casually spoken, still hit Alexander like lightning every time. I still love you. As if her love was a given, a constant, something he could rely on regardless of his pancake-making skills. I love you too, princess, he replied, flipping the massive pancake with questionable success. And mommy, Sophia prompted. And your mommy, Alexander agreed, meeting Maria's eyes across the kitchen. Very much. So, when are you getting married? Sophia asked, returning to her favorite topic of recent weeks. Sophia, Maria said, though she was smiling.
We've talked about this.
That's adult business. But I want to be a flower girl, Sophia insisted. Emma's sister was a flower girl, and she got to throw petals and wear a fancy dress and everything. You already have fancy dresses, Alexander pointed out. A wedding dress is different, Sophia explained with exaggerated patience. It's white and special and means you're family forever. We're already family, Maria said gently. But not official family, Sophia persisted. Official is better. Emma said so. Alexander caught Maria's eye and saw her trying not to laugh. The truth was, they discussed marriage, carefully, privately, making sure they were building something real rather than rushing into fantasy. They decided to wait a year, to make sure this wasn't just rescued billionaire syndrome or grateful housekeeper syndrome, but actual love. But Sophia's campaign was relentless. Tell you what, Alexander said, sliding a slightly burnt pancake onto Sophia's plate. How about we make a deal? You give us time to do this right, and I promise when we do get married, you'll be the most important flower girl in history. With a crown? With a crown, Alexander confirmed. And Peanut can come? Peanut will have his own tiny tuxedo. Sophia considered this. Okay, but don't take forever. I'm already 4. I'll be old soon. After breakfast, they walked to Central Park, their Saturday tradition. Sophia ran ahead on the path, stopping periodically to examine interesting leaves or rocks or pigeons. Alexander and Maria walked hand in hand, comfortable in the silence that comes with deep knowing. She's not wrong, you know, Maria said eventually, about making it official. I know, Alexander replied, but I want to do it right. I want to be sure you're choosing me because you want to, not because I have resources you need. Maria stopped walking, turning to face him fully. Alexander Hunt, look at me. She waited until he met her eyes. I fell in love with you when you crouched down to Sophia's level and asked about her birthday cake. When you planned a party for a child you didn't know because her whisper broke through your walls. I fell in love with the man who learned to make terrible pancakes because Sophia asked him to, who reads bedtime stories with all the character voices even though you're terrible at accents, who treats my daughter like she's precious because to you, she is. She is, Alexander said softly. I know. And so am I to you. Not because of what you can give me, but because of who you are when you're with us. You're real. You're present. You're the man you were supposed to be before the world taught you to hide behind wealth and success. Maria cupped his face in her hands. So yes, I want to marry you. Not for your money or your penthouse or your foundation. For you. The man who became human again because a 3-year-old whispered about birthday cakes. Alexander felt his eyes burning. I was going to wait until Christmas, he admitted. I have a ring already. Have had it for a month. You do? Maria's eyes widened. In my nightstand.
Custom made.
The diamond is shaped like a heart because I'm apparently a huge romantic sap now. He smiled through threatening tears. I was planning this whole elaborate proposal, maybe at the zoo by the elephants, since that's where Sophia says I belong. Alexander, Maria interrupted, laughing and crying simultaneously. Are you proposing right now? In the middle of Central Park on a random Saturday morning while our daughter chases pigeons. I think I am, Alexander said, surprised at himself. I was going to wait, but you just said you want to marry me, and I want to marry you, and life's too short to wait for perfect moments when you're already standing in one. No ring, Maria pointed out. I'll get it when we get home. Consider this the pre-proposal. The proposal. He took her hands. Maria Santos, I love you. I love your strength and your laugh, and the way you make me want to be better. I love how you parent Sophia with such fierce tenderness. I love that you're not impressed by my money, but you're proud of what I'm learning to do with it. Will you marry me? Officially? With a ring and a plan, and whatever kind of wedding you want. Mommy. Mr. Alexander. Look. Sophia's shout interrupted the moment. She was pointing at the sky where a bird, possibly a hawk, was circling overhead. It's a sign. Signs are always birds. A sign of what? Maria called back, not taking her eyes off Alexander. That something good is happening. Sophia yelled, then went back to her pigeon observation. She's right, Maria said softly. Something good is happening. Yes, Alexander. Yes, I'll marry you. Officially. With a ring and a plan, and probably a very small wedding, because large ones make me anxious. Alexander kissed her then, properly, in the middle of Central Park on a Saturday morning with their daughter nearby, and the whole world watching. He felt joy radiate from his core outward, felt the last pieces of his old, lonely self fall away completely. When they finally pulled apart, Sophia was standing right beside them, hands on her hips. Did you just get engaged? How did you? Maria started. I was listening, Sophia said cheerfully. I'm good at listening. So yes or no? Yes, Alexander confirmed. Your mommy said yes. Sophia let out a squeal that probably scared every bird in a 3-block radius and launched herself at both of them. They caught her in a 3-way hug, laughing and crying and being the kind of scene that made other park-goers smile at the obvious love radiating from this unlikely family. Can we get the ring now? Sophia demanded. I want to see it. We can get it when we get home, Maria laughed. And then can we tell everyone? Can we call Abuela in Honduras? And Mrs. Chen? And all my friends from school? And the ducks? We can tell everyone except the ducks, Alexander agreed. They don't care about human engagements. You don't know that, Sophia said seriously. Ducks have feelings too. They walked home hand in hand, Sophia chattering about flower girl dresses and whether Peanut would need just a tuxedo or a full suit. When they reached the building, Sophia ran ahead to tell the doorman the news, leaving Maria and Alexander alone for a moment in the lobby. Are you sure about this? Maria asked quietly. Your life was so different before us. So quiet and ordered. My life was empty before you, Alexander corrected. Beautiful and expensive and completely empty. Now it's full of noise and toys and crayon drawings and love. So much love, I sometimes don't know what to do with it all. Learn, Maria said simply. That's what we're all doing. Learning how to be this family we're building. The family they were building. Not a fairy tale, but something better, something real. A billionaire who'd remembered how to be human. A single mother who'd learned to accept help without shame. A little girl who'd whispered about birthday cakes and accidentally saved them all. That night, after Sophia was asleep with Peanut tucked under her arm and dreams of flower girl crowns dancing in her head, Alexander and Maria sat on the balcony, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The ring, Delicate gold with a heart-shaped diamond sparkled on Maria's finger. "Thank you," Alexander said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing past the billionaire to the lonely man underneath. For giving me a chance to be part of something real. For raising a daughter wise enough to whisper about birthday cakes and change someone's entire life." Maria leaned her head on his shoulder. "She didn't change your life. She just reminded you that you had one. Same thing, maybe." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights, both thinking about the strange journey that had brought them here. From a whispered confession to a birthday party to a family to a proposal, all because a 3-year-old girl had been brave enough to speak a simple truth, and a billionaire had been ready to hear it. Inside, Sophia stirred in her sleep and smiled, dreaming of the wedding where she'd be a princess flower girl, where her mommy would wear a white dress, where Mr. Alexander would officially become family. She didn't know the word for it yet, but she was dreaming of happy endings that were really happy beginnings. And in the penthouse that was no longer cold or empty, but filled with love and laughter and the beautiful chaos of family, 3 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way were learning the most important lesson of all. That wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in moments of connection. That home isn't a place, but the people who see your heart. And that sometimes the most powerful words in the world are whispered by a child who simply says what's true. "I never had a birthday cake." 6 words that had changed everything. 6 words that had reminded a billionaire that he was human, that had brought a struggling family into abundance, that had created something beautiful from honest need and generous response. 6 words that proved the real magic wasn't in fairy godmothers or wishes, but in people choosing to see each other, to care for each other, to build something real together. And somewhere in the penthouse, hung on the refrigerator alongside Sophia's drawings, was a photograph from that first party. Alexander, Maria, and Sophia on a rented throne, smiling like they'd always been family, like they'd always known this was where their story was heading. Looking at it now, they all understood the truth. This was just the beginning. The best was yet to come.
The end.